All or nothing. Real beauty exposed. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the All or Nothing podcast. I'm Dr. Heather Anderson, and today we're going to talk about bullying, in particular woman versus woman bullying and how to navigate that. Now, this is a topic that's a little bit dear to my heart in the sense that I myself have been a victim of a lot of bullying in the past. It's a sad reality that a lot of us experience, and we experience it on multiple levels. So not just personally, but professionally as well. And it can be really hard to navigate, particularly professionally, because everyone should, kind of be good in the professional sense, right? But it happens. And it seems to happen a lot amongst circles of women, and it can be really hard to unpack and figure out why. So ask yourself, have you been in a situation where you feel that you're being excluded? Are people gossiping about you? Are you having situations happen where you feel like people are talking about you? It can be subtle. Bullying doesn't have to be someone yelling in your face. It can be really small, subtle signs that people aren't being kind to you. And it can be really confusing and hurtful when you think, oh, well, what have I done? I've been nothing but nice to these people and they don't want to be around me. They might even start to be nice to you and then turn on you all of a sudden for no apparent reason. Bullying can feel really hard when you feel like everyone's talking about you, because it means that you feel like you can't talk to anyone else about it. Because will they support you? Will they hear you? Will they believe you? So we've all kind of been there. And I'll share some of my experiences because I think it's really important that we talk about it. It's something that certainly happens a lot in the world of medicine, say. So in the world of medicine, there's a lot of competition naturally, not just amongst women and women, it's everyone. Because even to get into medicine, there's a lot of competition. So you get into medicine, you work really hard, you fight to get into it because there's only a certain number of places. And then when you're in there, you think it's all good. But then when you start working, things can change a little bit. And there's a strong hierarchy amongst the world of doctors where there is a lot of bullying. So you have people who naturally are the consultants or the higher up people in that certain specialty. And of course, what they say goes because they know the most about everything and they're in that position for a reason. So naturally, everyone inherently trusts them. But that doesn't mean that that power necessarily comes with kindness. It doesn't mean that that power comes with empathy. It can mean that it's actually something that can really be used and abused as a means of putting people down and minimizing them. So in my experience as a baby doctor, for example, I encountered multiple times of bullying. And even as a student, when you're a student, you are attached to certain teams on wards, and teams can be really unkind. They often find you that you're in the way and you're kind of annoying, and they don't get paid extra to help you. And you're supposed to hang around them and get signed off. And it's really hard to do that when people don't want to be around you. So you learn very early on in the world of medicine that this is the culture and this is kind of what happens. And it doesn't just happen from other doctors, it happens from nurses, from midwives, from all the people that you work with. And it's because people might be under a lot of stress, or they might be in certain situations they're not happy with. And it's very easy to take that out on other people. As a junior doctor, I had the experience where I worked in teams where I wasn't communicated with very well, and I was blamed for that, and I was treated very poorly by senior staff sometimes, and that was really hard. And it actually changed my perception of what I wanted to do in terms of specialty. So when I was going through medicine, I wanted to become a surgeon and I wanted to do general surgery, but when I had my run in that specialty, I found it very hard, because I felt like it wasn't for me based on the way I was treated, and I didn't feel like I was part of a team. And really, to make you feel like you're going to work really hard in a specialty, which inherently comes with very long hours, you need to be part of a team who make you feel that you are valued. And so that really switched for me in terms of what I wanted to do. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do after that until I started doing orthopedics, and then I loved it and I fit in, and I definitely didn't feel bullied, and I felt like I was part of a team, and suddenly my eyes opened up to that. So that was a lesson I learned very early on about what direction I was going to go in. And when I look back, I am thankful for that experience in the sense that it taught me how never to treat people. Even if you're in a position of power or more experience, you should never treat people in a way that makes them feel diminished, that is rude to them, that means that they don't want to turn up to work at all, because it's really hard when you're working long hours and someone's making it really hard for you to be able to communicate, to be able to be trusted, to be able to do your job, because they're constantly moving the goalposts whenever you're trying to get something done. it can feel really diminishing. It can feel really just helpless, and it makes you have no motivation to continue. So I certainly had that experience early on in a career, which really paved the way for me wanting to do things differently, because I think it's important to do things differently. So it made me really good as a registrar when I did orthopedics, for example, which means you're one level up from the junior doctors, and that means that you can treat them with kindness as a result. You can communicate clearly with them, and you can give them that praise that I know that people need, even though when we have good self-worth, we don't need to seek external validation from others. But it still is a bloody nice thing to have someone say you're doing a good job, especially if you're working really hard for them. It's nice to have that recognition. And people do respect you, especially when you're in a level of power. They have a lot of inherent respect because that's just human nature. And to have someone in that position tell you you're doing a good job when you know you're putting that effort in, it can feel really empowering and really trigger your motivation and make you want to work even harder. So it's interesting, and that's how our minds work. Throughout my journey into different other, specialties, even in urgent care and even in the world of cosmetic, there are still pockets of what I would perceive as bullying going on. And that's just because people form their own little circles or cliques, especially women, and they start to exclude other people for no apparent reason. And that feeling of exclusion can feel really hard because you don't really know what you've done wrong. And they can start making up stuff about you. They can start creating narratives about you. And that's really hard because you realize that actually it's their word versus yours, and you don't know how to navigate that. But the actual interesting thing is when you start to understand how bullies work and where it comes from and how their minds work, you start to release that and start to realize that it's actually about them and their issues, and it's not actually about you. And that is an empowering thing. So it comes from building self-worth naturally, like in episode 1, where you learn to love yourself, and therefore you don't seek external validation from other people, and you don't feel that what they say about you really matters because you know your truth. And if you know your truth, you accept being a villain in someone else's story. You accept being someone who they can say whatever about, because your actions are your actions and your intentions are your intentions, and people will see that. You don't have to prove yourself, and you don't have to try and get everyone to like you, because that's exhausting. Ultimately, the people who are genuine and who are the people that you should make time with are the people that will recognize your character and what you bring to the table. But you have to do that inside first. So when you get to that point, you do start to realize that, oh, well, look what they're doing. It's obviously comes from some pain or some deep-rooted issues. So let's unpack what those deep-rooted issues are. So bullies tend to be hurt people. So hurt people that might have been modeled behavior from when they were younger in their experiences. I guess when you are bullied yourself, you can either go one of two ways. You could use it as a means of breaking cycles, like how I feel I did, where it motivated me to be better and do better. Because I remember throughout my entire career, and even to this day, I have the most respect and really look up to the people who are amazing at their job naturally, but also who are kind. People who are humble and kind and don't expect people to kiss their ass or anything. They're just people that get on with it and are good at what they do, and they have time for you because they're nice people. Those are the people that inspire me immensely. And it makes you want to be equally inspiring to other people. You want to make people lifted up. You want people to have that confidence to make their decisions and do a good job. And it makes people excited and happy to be around you. And how wonderful is that? So you could take your experiences and flip it on its head and break that cycle, or you could perpetuate that same cycle. And I think a lot of people perpetuate it because they may not realize, or they may not be determined to break it, because breaking it comes at a cost. When you break a cycle, you inevitably become more of a villain. You inevitably become more victimized. You inevitably trigger more people because it reveals in other people what they don't bring to the table. And that it very much happens with women. Women tend to bully women who trigger them, and they don't even know why they're triggered. So they might view someone who has a lot of things, or someone who's successful or confident or very capable, as a threat. They see it as a reflection of themselves that makes them look like they're less than. And so they naturally have to put that other person down in order to feel like they're either equal or better. Because if they don't feel that way, then their whole world comes crumbling down because they have such low self-worth. So looking at bullies in that sort of way can change the way you think about them a little bit and kind of give you a chance to have compassion for them. Because when you go through this experience, naturally they bother you and they become a core problem, but you don't have to let them bother you if you learn to forgive them as well. So forgiveness is a really powerful thing that is really hard for a lot of us to do. Because, people have wronged you, you sort of don't want to have anything to do with them, and you hold frustration for them the way they treated you, especially when it was really unfounded. However, if you learn to forgive, you don't have to succumb any boundaries. You don't have to lower boundaries and let them hurt you again. You can still establish strong boundaries and not let them hurt you, but you can actually release that negative energy and know that where it came from their perspective, was a place of hurt and a place of learned behavior that they may or may not be aware about. And that's a sad situation for them. So you can have compassion for that. You can empathize with that and say, well, I'm glad I'm not feeling that way, or I feel that I need to do that to other people in order to feel better about myself. So compassion really drives a lot of forgiveness. And there's some talk about that. Apparently, when we forgive and we have compassion for people, we spike brainwaves called alpha brainwaves, which are the brainwaves that are actually detected when people are in a deep meditative state and where you have maximum levels of creativity. Being able to forgive enables you to access those brainwaves and get to a state of more happiness, more lightness, and it helps you release that negative energy and move forward and just feel really ambivalent towards these people who have hurt you, because they don't deserve to have power over you. They haven't hurt you because you're a bad person. If you know you're a good person and didn't do anything wrong, they didn't hurt you because you're anything less than that. They hurt you because they're hurting themselves. So that's a really important thing to remember to empower yourself, is when you feel bullied by someone, why is that? What might they bring to the table? What might not they bring to the table? Think about that. So bullies tend to trigger what they admire. So there's a lot of envy that bullies can have secretly for people that they bully. So if someone is successful, someone is they might look a certain way, they might do a certain thing, whatever they do, it feels threatening on some level. They tend to trigger that. So also think about that with bullies, is why are they targeting me? Is there something that I'm bringing to the table that they may admire? And therefore you can actually turn the experience into a compliment. It feels a bit weird in the moment thinking, why, if I'm being treated poorly, should I see that as a compliment? But when you understand what you bring to the table, you see that people do that as a means of flattery, almost, as a means of not being able to handle what you bring to the table. Rather than allowing your light to shine, they want to snuff it out so theirs continues to shine. But just like lighting two candles next to each other, if you light them next to each other, there's actually a lot more light. It doesn't eclipse the other one. So they don't see that though. And I think because they're driven by fear that they're not going to be enough, because they're telling themselves on the inside that they're not enough. And so when someone is successful on the outside, it makes them feel even less than they're enough. Their inner critic is going crazy. It's telling them, this person is so much better than you. What's wrong with you? And the only way to cope with that is to minimize that person, is to make them into a villain in their mind so that they feel better, and then to exert actions in order to minimize them even more. So as we talked about with bullying, it can be subtle. And woman versus woman is an interesting one, because essentially women should be, I guess, banding together and creating a sisterhood that we're supposed to have, where we support one another, because society and history tells us that, women were on the back foot for a very long time, and we still are in multiple ways. So it's about empowering us to work together in order to create change and also lift each other up. But it's interesting in that my personal bullying experiences have mostly been from women. And it's really interesting in that you think, well, what did I do to these women? I didn't do anything. But when you really start to delve into why, you start to understand where it comes from. So society has always put women on the back foot. We couldn't vote. We didn't have rights like men did. And as I sort of mentioned, other cultures, still there's a lot of ways that women are less than in the world today as well. We've come a long way, but we still have work to do. When you're in that, it means that there is more competition amongst women to fight for those limited spaces of worth or position within society. So naturally, we've already got the scarcity that we're fighting for. And when we have the scarcity, we want to try and be the only one. And society continues to perpetuate it, even in the Western world, where we have these who wore it better, prettiest kind of things. She's the most prettiest. She wore that outfit better than the other person. There's still those comparative narratives that are putting people in that position of thinking that we have to be competing. And then when you think about competing with each other, obviously when you're in competition, you naturally want to win or go ahead of that person against you. So that competitiveness can turn into bullying. And why do women want to compete with each other? Well, sometimes competition is safer. It feels safer than collaboration and vulnerability. To be able to collaborate with someone, especially someone you have a lot of respect for, or especially someone who's doing very well at what they're doing, that takes a lot of, I guess, humility, and it takes a lot of vulnerability. And that's a scary, uncomfortable place for a lot of people to be. It's easier to compete because it's a nice, happy shield that we can have around us. And that can drive women to feel inherently like they have to compete with one another. Social media can definitely perpetuate bullying in the sense that it removes empathy a lot in our society. So social media is so just comments and can be lots of trolls and obviously pictures and videos, but there's not so much human connection. There's not a chance for empathy, and it means that cruelty can actually be perpetuated very quickly. And this is how online bullying really perpetuates. And it's a horrible thing because people can hide behind their keyboards and say the most nastiest, degrading, terrible things to one another. And they don't feel they need empathy because there's that lack of connection. If you're sitting in front of someone, looking at them in the eye, it's very hard to tell them really nasty things. So these people who have all these insecurities hide behind their computers and do it without even thinking, because they don't actually see the tears well up in that person's eyes. They don't really see how confronting that conversation is for the other person. They don't see the hurt. They don't feel the body language. Most of our communication is actually body language. It's not so much the words we say. And it's not so much what we say as well, it's how we make people feel. So when we see someone reacting with negative emotion to something we've said, automatically we start to think, was that a good thing? Am I happy with the way that I just spoke to that person? It's very hard to do that online. You fire it out there, don't have to know about it, move on to the next one. And so it is a complete, cesspool of people just bullying each other because they can. And there's that platform to do it. And that is habitual in so many people. And that's a sad thing. And it's very sad amongst younger generations who are very much brought up in this online comparison culture as well, where we can hide behind keyboards and say nasty things. But it takes a lot more balls to go up to someone and say a horrible thing to them. And this is why the bullying culture is probably getting worse and probably will continue to get worse in our society in future. When people bully, they often project their own insecurities. So they might be criticizing themselves on the inside, obviously having an internal critic, and that means that they are often projecting those to other people. So they might start to accuse other people of certain things that they haven't done or haven't said or don't have because that's an unresolved issue that they have on the inside. So if you start having people say things about you where you're like, that's not at all true, start thinking about that. Think about if this is something that this person would feel about themselves, because that's a natural human response people do have when they project. If you give people space to talk, so if you're a chatty person like me, it can be hard to do, but if you give yourself space to let someone talk, they often become very honest and chatty and start talking about things, and often they can project how they're truly feeling onto other people. So starting to read into that someone, if they're saying something nasty about someone to you or to you, think about where it's coming from, especially if it's random. It's kind of like that whole thing, especially women do this a lot, where they meet you or they meet another woman and they're like, I just don't like her. Oh, I don't like her. And you're like, why? Have they done something to you? I don't like her. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. Often when someone just doesn't like someone, or you've done it yourself, for some reason, you meet someone who you just don't like, and they haven't done anything, and there's nothing tangible that you can put your finger on saying, I really dislike this person for this reason. Really start looking on the inside, or tell your friend or whoever's telling you to start looking on the inside. There's a reason for that. They're triggering you on the inside because they're bringing something to the table that you either don't have, you either want, or it's just bubbling up an insecurity in you that you have to manage. So when we have a trigger, they're actually a portal to a part of ourselves that we have to correct and we have to work on. So that's something that it's a really great learning opportunity. It is a place of growth that you can achieve by understanding that this has triggered you in some way. This is a problem and you don't know why. So figure it out. Why are you jealous of this person? Or why are you envious of this person? Or why is this person annoying you when they haven't done anything to you? Write it down if you have to. What has this person done to me to make me so angry or to make me feel like I don't want to be around them? Think about it, because it's probably going to be something that you lack on the inside. So true empowerment comes from connection and collaboration. So when women particularly bully others, they feel like it's making them powerful. They've made this clique around them of people who are willing to kind of, perpetuate that narrative. They've got this nice exclusive group, and they're probably bullying even from subtle means. So they're excluding others. They're being dismissive of others. They're sort of just creating this force field around them, which hurts other people without even kind of, I don't even know if they realize. They may or may not, but that feeling of sort of togetherness amongst this group gives them that power. But it's interesting in that doesn't actually mean that you're a powerful person. It means you're a very weak person because you can't stand on your own. People who have really good self-worth and are truly empowered are the people who can walk this life alone and be inclusive of people because they don't feel that they need to compete. They don't feel less than. They want to celebrate everyone. They might have good boundaries in the sense that if they encounter people that aren't kind to them or aren't serving them, then they will continue to move on in a respectful and kind way. Slow fade is a good way to do that. But they don't feel that they have to be part of this clique or this group of people in order to feel safe. So if you find yourself part of a clique, are they gossiping about people? Are they making up things about people? Are they excluding people? And especially if they're giggling and laughing about it or kind of making a joke of it, really question that group of people that you're with. Is that something that you get a rise out of? And if so, why? Do you have low self-worth? Are you scared to stand on your own? Are you seeking a connection that you need in order to fulfill you in some way? And then if you're not in that and you see other people do that, you can kind of see why. They just really can't stand on their own 2 feet. They need each other, and they need to exclude people to feel like they have a special bond or a special relationship that puts them on a pedestal above other people. But in reality, we're all equal. It doesn't matter what job you do. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you look like, even though it's nice to, have a situation where you feel like you look a way that you want to express yourself and you come from a safe environment. It doesn't matter though. At the end of the day, none of that really matters because we're all equal. But if people treat anyone else like they are inferior or less than them for no apparent reason, then it's a huge red flag. It says that they're lacking something on the inside. That means that they have to put themselves above other people. It's a narcissistic trait, which means they put down others in order to make themselves rise up and feel better. Because on the inside of them, at their core, they're hollow, they're empty, they're insecure, they're scared. They're scared little puppies that just actually need a huge force field around them to feel important. But really, the people that are the full ones, the ones with the full cups, they never act that way. They don't ever have to say a bad word about someone. They come with kindness and compassion and inspire people because they have so much to give because they've learned to fill their cup. So it really comes down to that as well. Self-worth is such a core issue that really dictates a lot of this bullying culture. Bullies can often fear rejection, and so sometimes that leads to them preemptively attacking people. So they might go through life and just feel triggered in a way, and they go on the attack just to make sure that people don't hurt them. And I guess that's how people sabotage relationships as well, when they go on the preemptive attack before there's even a problem, because they just feel like they're not worthy of that situation. So rather than just allowing things to, I guess, evolve in a natural, nice way, they put things on the back foot by preemptively attacking. So look for that as well, because that can definitely be an issue. Social reinforcement really perpetuates these social circles of bullying amongst women, where if one kind of starts to, I guess, criticize or alienate or bully someone, the others get on there and they start having a bit of a laugh and gossipy and whatever. It just continues to fuel it. So if you went to, say, a group of friends and you started saying something nasty about someone for no apparent reason, good, true friends or good people would go, What's wrong? Like, are you okay? This isn't the sort of conversation that we tend to have. I don't understand why we're talking in this way. Whereas if you've got a bunch of people who are like, latching onto that, really, it's fueling their fire, then that's a recipe for disaster, and that's a huge red flag. If you're amongst a group of women who are doing that, think about it. Think, is that your people? Are you enjoying that? And if you're enjoying that, why? What is lacking inside of you that feels that you need to put other people down to feel better about yourself? Don't be a bully. You don't need to be a bully. There is enough light out there for everyone. There is enough patience out there for everyone. So, for example, in the cosmetic world, there's a lot of competition inherently amongst, different injectors, different clinics, because, everyone, I guess, is all competing for the same patients, I guess. But I have the strong view that there is enough patience for everyone. If you put the right energy out there, the right energy will come back. You don't have to minimize anyone. You don't have to say a bad word about a certain person. You don't have to, kind of manipulate people to get what you want. And you don't have to ostracize people in order to be successful. Truly successful people don't have to do that. They know their truth and they stick to it. And I feel very strongly about that. And I feel that we can change this, the way that we do it. And I believe the industry could change, but again, it's naturally quite superficial, and there is a lot of financial incentive that people have, which does cloud people's judgment a little bit. And that makes it really hard, because being a very female-dominated industry too, you do get those circles amongst anything, and any professional circles, which makes it even harder. So we all just need to really think about why we're doing what we're doing, and really figure out what we bring to the table, and really figure out why we love ourselves or why we don't love ourselves, and why we might be treating other people good or bad. Figure this stuff out, write this stuff down, because it's about time we change this. Women need to stop bullying other women. They need to stop putting each other down. We need to support each other. There is enough room and light for all of us. Another reason why people can bully as well is that they may lack positive female role models. So if women have looked up to, bullies and things, then it's natural that they're probably going to continue to perpetuate that. So we can change that. We can become positive role models for other people. We can change the way that is by showing with our actions that empathy and kindness can win. Because when you're kind, no one loses. And there isn't even a competition. There's no winners or losers here. There's only losers if you feel you have to compete. And it's competing in a race that only you're creating for yourself. So if you have good self-worth and you don't consider yourself a bully, it doesn't matter what people do to you. You just keep walking your walk and let people be. And if they're creating this competition or this race, you're not even in it. You're not even participating. It's all in their head. Let them feel that way, but it's got nothing to do with you. It is to do with their issue. It's not due to your worth. So it's going to be really hard for us to change the media machine. There's still going to be who wore it better, or there's still going to be beauty comparisons amongst women, because that's just the culture. But we don't have to follow what the media says. We can resist that. We can go against that. We can let people be, and we can just let them do their thing. But it doesn't mean that you have to follow in those footsteps. So whether or not you've been taught by someone who's a bully and they've modeled that behavior, whether you have felt someone bully you and you feel like you have to repeat it to justify your own experience, or you feel like it's just natural because that's just how it is, really think about how you can change that. Because if we all just work on ourselves, the whole world can be a better place. We can change the narrative. So just remember that there is always enough light for everyone. We can all lift each other up. We can change these cycles, and we can support one another. Women can support one another. We don't have to compete with each other. It's not a competition. It doesn't ever have to be a competition. There are some arguments where competition can be healthy, but it's not when you're comparing yourself to other people. It's not fair. Let other people shine and use their shining as an inspiration for your shining. Don't let them eclipse you, because they're not. There is enough light for everyone. Don't ever forget that. And if you're a victim of bullying, don't ever forget that there is deep-rooted issues and core problems that bullies have, which makes them do what they do. I always tell my kids, if there's any sort of bullying or any issues, just think about why that person's doing that. Especially kid bullies. They're obviously experiencing other turmoils that they're going through as a means of treating other kids in a bad way. So it it sort of permeates everything. It permeates professional lives and it permeates personal lives and children in different age groups. But you don't have to let it happen and you don't have to let it affect you. But just know that it is not a reflection of your worth. So that wraps up another episode of the All or Nothing podcast. If you have any questions at all, please email askdrheather@allor.co.nz and also check out our website www.allor.co.nz. You can also check out this podcast on Spotify, YouTube and iHeartRadio. Join me for the next episode where we're going to talk about how other people's opinions influence your cosmetic journey. So stay tuned.